Lately I've been feeling a little bit of an aversion to modern gaming. Not that there isn't good stuff to play. I mean, the fact that a game like Ghost of Yotei isn't a shoe-in for Game of the Year is wild. This has been a great year for video games, but at the same time, there are still so many old games I want to experience or revisit, and I guess that's just the mood I've been on. So mostly on a whim, I started playing Resistance: Fall of Man, a somewhat forgotten franchise from the PS3 era. I never played this before, so there's no nostalgia here, just the honest opinions of someone random on the internet. You know, what you came here for, at least I hope so. Resistance: Fall of Man is a first-person shooter developed by Insomniac Games, which nowadays you're more likely to know as the Spider-Man or Wolverine guys. It's set in an alternative history 1950s, where bug-like alien creatures have mutated humans into monstrous hybrids called Chimera that have completely dominated all of Europe. The game is set in England, and you play as Sergeant Nathan Hale, an American soldier that quickly becomes the sole survivor of his platoon. He is immune to the transformation humans go through when infected with the Chimera virus. I'm not really sure if it's mentioned what it is specifically, so I'll call it a virus, why not? We don't know why he's immune, only that he seems to be the only person to ever have survived the virus with their humanity intact. This gives him the ability to heal wounds and be stronger and faster than a normal human. Also, yellow eyes. That's very important for the plot, as it gives away to most characters that something is wrong with him immediately. For us, the main difference is that you can finally heal. Cleverly enough, the first mission before Hale gets infected, you can't do any sort of healing. It's a cool way to implement the at the time not super overused regenerative health. This game has both the old school health pickups and regeneration, and having it explained is definitely a cool touch that a lot of games don't care to do. You have 4 health nodes. You can regenerate them unless they get fully depleted. When that happens, you need to pick up health from the floor to have that node back. Considering the year this game came out, it's a really good best of both worlds implementation. So remember when I said Nathan has above average strength and speed? Well, you sure won't feel that while playing. Chimera actually die fast enough with melee, but holy crap is my man slow as hell. I even googled how to run, and even after trying what the internet said multiple times, I could not for the life of me make him run. Apparently you're supposed to tap the L2 trigger, not press it because that will make you crouch, just a little tap. Well, either I'm challenged or that is just a lie. So for all intents and purposes, Nathan Hale does not run. He aura farms everywhere he goes. Paired with the fact that I was not used to old FPS controls anymore, and that I kept expecting aiming down sights to be better than hip fire, partly because that's my preference so we can't blame the game too much on this aspect, I had a really miserable time at first. And to be honest, it didn't get much better later on, but we'll get there. The movement and aiming was sluggish and was not really clicking with me at all. But as time went on, I did get more used to it, but it never really felt smooth. Again, this part might be my rust showing on old FPSs, but still worth mentioning. At times it felt this game was throwing a little bit too much at you, especially as you got closer to the end. And even though it did get less monotonous, it got more infuriating. There were way too many parts that felt very instant death traps with very little input on your end, where everything, even a gust of wind, melted your health bar like butter. All you can really do is hide and hope that enemies don't rush you all at once. Some checkpoints are painfully placed, and even though I have experienced worse, it doesn't mean they didn't feel like crap at some points. Let's get some story elements out of the way. The plot development is done mostly through a narrator retelling Nathan's story of how he helped liberate England. For the most part, our protagonist is quiet. Notice how I said most of the times? For some reason, not even God knows, they decided to give him random throwaway lines extremely rarely. I get that he's supposed to be a mysterious anime guy or whatever, but it just bugged me more than it probably should. It's just a small thing, but it just makes him come across as such a dick. There are times where it does make sense for him to respond in some way, and he simply doesn't. And it's not like he only speaks in incredibly important parts or anything like that, it truly just feels random. I can't understand this decision. Why not pick one and stick with it? There is a plot here, but I didn't find it compelling at all. In fact, I don't know if I was spacing out or what, but I swear some areas don't even feel connected to each other. And I'm not talking about when you clearly go further away in a vehicle or whatnot. I mean when you're on foot in an area and suddenly you reach the end of the chapter and you're magically somewhere slightly different. Mind you, it's very likely to not be a super interesting location. In an FPS like this, I'm not expecting to be mesmerized by the story, but I am expecting a glue that holds interesting places or excuses to do fun things in a somewhat believable way. Well, that's where Resistance lost me. Neither plot or moment-to-moment gameplay is interesting enough to make you want to keep playing. The vehicle sections are not very enjoyable, mostly slow and mind-numbing. The level design is honestly pretty bland and uninspired. It's all very competently made, and there are parts that are more interesting and fun, but I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. And the deeper I got into the game, the more bored I got. Even the most powerful enemies were just bullet sponges with very little depth. The worst of them all being the spider thing. This thing sucks major ass. All big guys are very predictable, but the spider's attacks feel impossible to dodge in any way, even when you see them coming. So all you can do is hope it dies before you do. The color palette did not help either. It's so goddamn lifeless. Adding more vibrant colors in certain things or places would have made everything stand out more, and given emphasis to the alien tech, which seems weirdly uninspired. Although this is England, so maybe it's just a realistic depiction of the weather. I'm not saying you can't be dark and gloomy, I'm just saying a bit of color would have made the world less bland looking. There are a few destructive elements such as some cover and stuff which did breathe life into the maps, but these felt few and far between, or at least I couldn't get them to work very often. The game is also surprisingly quiet. The music is extremely subdued, and sometimes this can work to immerse you in the world or ground things, but in this case I just felt an emptiness that at points almost felt awkward. Perfect if you like blasting your own music, but when I'm making a video I try to keep my attention fully on the game, and that's hard enough as is. I can't add an extra distraction. The actual sound design is perfectly fine, but the music itself was poorly utilized. There is no better place to describe just how I felt about Resistance as a whole than with its ending. Oh boy. Would you believe me if I said I didn't even notice I was at the finish line until the credits rolled? That's partially because this game has nothing that marked me as a grand moment, something that you will remember after the game is done. You know, a cool set piece or an interesting boss. It all just honestly passed by without much impact. The ending battle being probably the closest thing. You reach a circular area with something in the middle, eventually you're told to shoot 4 targets on that middle thing, enemies spawn to shoot out, or throw crap at you. I know I'm not giving a great description of it, but once that was done, I realized the game was over, and 1, I was confused with the final encounter which felt very anticlimactic, and 2, so glad to be done with Resistance. Honestly, the game was getting extremely frustrating and not really any fun anymore. The best way to describe most of my experience is underwhelming. I don't know, maybe it just wasn't for me, but I truly am finding it hard to see any reason to replay Resistance other than nostalgia. Even the weapons were pretty forgettable. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I didn't care for almost any of them. They work just fine, and some even have interesting designs, but I just felt like they were a bit boring to use. When I think of Insomniac, I think of Ratchet and Clank, and maybe it's an unfair comparison to make, but I was expecting something more creative, especially considering that you do go deep into alien territory. I was just expecting more fun ideas from the weapons you find. At least that would be from the Chimera. I really dig the one that goes through walls and gets stronger by doing so, but I don't know, I was hoping for better. The shotgun also kind of sucks unless you fire the secondary mode, but then you have a very long cooldown before you can shoot again, so I always felt it was more trouble than it was worth. The worst one is probably the weapon that shoots these gooey things that explode. That thing is absolutely useless. Throwing a shoe at the enemy would probably be more effective. The only use I found for it are the swarm enemies because they die in one hit no matter what, and if they collide with the goo, it will just kill them. There are some new Game Plus weapons and they seem honestly more interesting, but by the time I finished the game, I couldn't be bothered to replay it. The game also allows you to play the campaign split screen with a friend, which I'm sure would have made it way more fun. And just like most games from its era, Resistance had an online multiplayer component. The servers have been shut down for a very long time, but from what I could tell, the online was generally liked. It does seem to have been a decent time at least, closer to an old school FPS game with weapon and health pickups. You can still play locally, but I didn't try any of this. It's still worth mentioning in case anyone is interested in trying it out. The last things of note, which I completely forgot about, are skill points and collectibles. The skill points are not in an RPG sense. Think of these more as in-game achievements. Some are level specific and others are more general. They have their requirements hidden until you do them, so they do come as a sort of incentive for experimentation. Each one gives you a specific amount of skill points which unlock concept art and skins for multiplayer. Yeah, and not the greatest reward nowadays, but the concept art is always cool to see at least. The collectibles, on the other hand, are only useful if you're invested in the world and or story of the game, and I really wasn't. I found most of them very uninteresting to read through. I ended up skipping a lot of them, but can you really blame me for not caring if the game wasn't gripping me at all? And I think that's one of the biggest problems with Resistance Fall of Men. It didn't really captivate me the way I thought it would. It felt stuck between old school and modern shooter, for better and for worse. Shout out to having all your arsenal available at all times, that I approve of 100%. The visuals were bland, I can barely remember the soundtrack, the vehicle sections were boring at best, and even the plot was so devoid of anything special that I didn't even notice I was at the end until the credits rolled. The moment-to-moment gameplay can be fun, but it quickly loses its luster. I can see how it could have been a great purchase as a PS3 launch title, but right now you have way better games to play with very similar premises and mechanics, and with the very little enjoyment I took from Resistance, I can't in good conscience recommend you go back and play it. If nostalgia was involved, I'm sure it would hit different, but this was my first time playing Fall of Men. It's such a shame. I remember playing Resistance 2 and liking it quite a lot, but now I'm questioning if I still would. But you know what, not all games are for everyone and they can't all be for you, and Resistance Fall of Men was most definitely not for me. Thank you so much for watching. This one was a bit more negative than usual, but some are bound to be like that. I truly didn't intend it like that, but once I sat down to write, I just had so many negative points that it evolved into this. Anyways, if you made it this far, let me know what you think of the video, of the game, of the weather. I don't care. Any comment helps me out and I appreciate and read all of them. I was going to do Resistance 2, but now I got a bit discouraged, so let me know if I should give it a shot. I've been yapping for far too long. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, and see you next time.